Hello and welcome to A Bettor Morning, presented by Rival Fantasy. I'm Heather Klein. Rival Fantasy is the all-in-one fantasy sports platform. Let's welcome today's panel. Award-winning host, the fantasy exec, Corey Parson. Host of Her Story in the Making, Britt's Fantasy Blitz and co-host of Lightning Round, Britt Flynn. Fantasy Alarm Lead NFL analyst and host of Fantasy Fiasco, Andrew Coop Cooper. Welcome, everyone.
Good morning. How's everybody doing today?
Doing great, actually. Got a decent amount of sleep for once in a while, you know.
Hey.
Even though I did a show just last night. Right after that, I got to go right to bed. Boom. What's happening?
And my adrenaline is always pumping after I do a show. So I can't go right to bed because, when you like how much talent comes out of me, you know what I'm saying? It's hard to sleep.
You're just dripping it. Well, I did Colton and the Wolfman. Something about that
Nice.
show's got the vibes. You talk a little movies, talk a little football, have a nice nap, wake up, and hang out with two of my very favorites. Three, in fact, because we got Heather behind the glass.
No doubt.
Well, thank you, Coop. All right, let's get going, guys. After one preseason start, the Indianapolis Colts named rookie QB Anthony Richardson as their QB1 to start the regular season. The Florida QB only started 13 games, with 12 of those starts being last season. He is a dual threat with his arm and legs, so Coach Shane Steichen will be able to tailor his offense around his skill set. Now that we know that Richardson will be the starter, does his draft capital move up the charts? And do you feel the Colts are rushing to start him? Britt, you're up first.
So, a big knock on Richardson in the pre-draft scouting was his lack of experience, but you don't remedy that by not playing him. So, I think that they're starting him at a perfect time. If the Colts believe that he can live up to his athletic potential, then you have to start him. Could it backfire? Sure. But they weren't exactly being talked about as a team with high expectations anyway. And if they're going to get better down the road, they need to get Anthony Richardson those reps. As far as his draft capital moving up, I can see it move up slightly, but the quarterbacks above him are pretty locked in. He may slide up to just under the QB1 threshold, but I think that increase will be minimal. But that said, if he is baby Cam Newton, like everybody has so nicknamed him, he does have the ability to slide in and make a play to finish as a low-end QB1.
Yeah, 6'4", 235 is definitely baby Cam Newton, but he played more like Josh Allen. He's a big dude, hard to bring down. He don't mind dishing out punishment in the running game as well. You know what I'm saying? I understand the experience. I also think the release is kind of slow. But in Shane Steichen's six-back attack, they're going to scheme it perfectly. You put Jonathan Taylor back there as well. This dude is probably going to be a fantasy QB1. I don't think he's going to burst onto the scene a la Cam Newton like he did and drop back-to-back 30 burgers to start his NFL career. But I do think he's going to be solid. I think he'll have the Colts in most games. Listen, you're going to have your ups and downs like you do with most rookie quarterbacks. But, yeah, it's time to start him now. And as far as fantasy, he's a good guy to have on your bench. And if he pops, you can put him in your lineup. If you play quarterback chicken too long, he could be a QB1. If you're playing those silly two-quarterback leagues, super flex leagues, he'd probably be good for that format too.
Yeah, first off, shout out Skylar, 13 years old today. I'm seeing in the chat. Happy birthday. I'm telling you guys right now, in some of the leagues that I've done already with some aggressive drafters, and I know my buddies from home like to get crazy, you're not getting Anthony Richardson as your QB2. You're not getting him off the bench. You have to start thinking about taking this guy as early. I'm talking as early as QB8 off the board. Once the big dogs, the guys named Justin are gone, Herbert, Burrow, I'm telling you, people are going to get froggy looking for that Russian upside. Russian gives you a floor, but the upside, of course, is crazy. So I could see people looking at guys like Trevor Lawrence and Dak Prescott feeling a little bit bored with that and going wild for Anthony Richardson. I know my buddies back home are going to be doing it. So I would start looking at where guys took Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson in past years. And if you got that guy in your league, you got to be ready to go get Richardson if you want him.
That's an excellent point right there. As we get closer to Labor Day and these drafts really getting rolling, especially now that he's been named the starter, like you said, people are going to look at that rushing ability. He's going to be drafted as a QB1. And shout out to Skylar. And also, same day, my daughter also turns 13 years old today. So shout out to Kennedy. We got two 13-year-olds in the house.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? Look at
big
that.
day.
Oh my God.
She's not a Raiders fan though, so
No,
lucky
God,
for
no.
her.
She's unlike her brother. She's a Dallas Cowboy fan.
Okay, she was raised
She was
right.
raised properly. Yeah.
Right. I think it's C. Corey. Something wrong with that boy. What is he like? What team is he into?
The Commanders.
Oh dear.
Oh,
He's one of those. He's going to do the opposite of me.
That's all right though. That's all right. Yeah,
Well,
but I mean, like, just that it's one of those things where you got to know your league, because I've got this guy in my league. I mean, he did win with Cam Newton that year, where Cam Newton went nuclear, had like 10 rushing touchdowns and also threw like 35. But he was also a guy willing to draft Lamar Jackson in that breakout year when his ADP was like 15. He took him like 9 as his only quarterback to start. He took Jalen Hurts. Like, this guy is willing to take those risks. If you got that guy in your league and you also want Richardson, be prepared to pull the trigger early.
I just want to go back to something that you said about people getting bored with Trevor Lawrence. Like, he's only starting his 3rd season and he's been very good. How do you really think people are going to get bored with Trevor Lawrence?
They want the Russian, Britt. That's all the kids want these days.
Shout out to Trevor Lawrence, though. I'm a Trevor Lawrence supporter, but I'll be honest, I do not have him in any drafts. I don't plan on really taking him. I'm going guys like Mahomes. I'm paying up for quarterback this year. Mahomes, Hurts, Burrow, you know what I mean, and try to put some stacks together around that in some tournaments. And, Anthony Richardson's backup option and stuff like that. But I hate to call him boring, but I'm not going to have no Trevor Lawrence probably.
Well, that's y'all's loss.
Show league.
We're here to get you ready for your fantasy football draft. Start a free 7-day trial of Fantasy Alarm's All-Pro subscription and get the Fantasy Football Draft Guide and cheat sheet free. Go to fantasyalarm.com/draft. All right, let's talk fantasy football draft strategies. Simply put, which draft position do you prefer to draft from? Corey, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, every season, when you start to do your research, you'll find a spot where, you like the way that your teams come out. Now, getting into these random mock drafts and, these random fantasies leagues, you never know what spot you're going to get in a snake draft. So I've been drafting at the top of the draft a lot lately, and I don't like it. But I did yesterday draft from the back end of the draft. And I think that people are sleeping on Devontae Adams. And he is starting to go around 2.3, 2.4. This is the dude that had 180 targets from Derek Carr last year. Now, and he only caught 100 passes. Now he's got a guy who knows this offense. You know how talented Devontae Adams is. So the closer I can get to that back end, so I can come out firing with somebody and, with a CeeDee Lamb or a Kelsey or St. Brown or not Kelsey, St. Brown or Adams. So I'm trying to get to that back end of the first round. I think that's where the magic happens this year.
Love the Devontae Adams call, but where I like to pick first, I just take the best player, man. If you want Christian McCaffrey, get him. If you want Justin Jefferson, get him. And here's the thing about the last pick. People like saying that they like picking at the end to get 2 studs. You can get 2 studs at the other swing, but it's increasingly getting grosser and grosser in the 3rd round. And you look around, guys like Ramondre Stevenson, Breece Hall, taking big hits with the signings. Josh Jacobs might hold out. Jonathan Taylor might hold out. For me, I'm looking to get the very best player and then get 2 more guys at that 2-3 swing before everybody else has to make those tough decisions on the Ramondres and the Breeces of the world. So give me the first pick, give me Justin Jefferson, and then I'll figure the rest out.
Yeah, I don't really care where I draft. I think that I can make an adjustment wherever. But lately I have ended up towards the end, and I seem to prefer that a little bit better. You can adjust for draft strategy, like Get in the Game says in the chat. That's what happened in the Queen's Classic. I was picking 13th out of 14th, ended up seeing that everybody was going wide receiver heavy. So I ended up getting Bijan and taking my anchor and then adapting throughout the rest of the draft. I don't really necessarily think that affects your outcome one way or the other where you draft. You just have to be aware of how the draft is going around you and then make adjustments as far as that goes.
It's very good.
Nah, pick first.
Yeah, you've been listening and learning, Britt. You know what I'm saying?
Corey.
Pick one. There's a reason they had to invent third round reversal, and that's because the first picks mathematically do better, man. Just pick the
You
first.
know who the player was?
They might have done better with like LaDainian Tomlinson, but that's not the case anymore. Like third round reversal is for those big studs who outscored people by like 100 or 200 points in a season. That doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't happen anymore. That gap is not that big. That gap is not that big.
So like
Travis Kelce,
Justin Jefferson was like 22 points per game. When it was LaDainian Tomlinson was like 29, 30, something crazy. But you know who was pretty close to that was David Johnson in his hey. He was a dude that racked up a ton of fantasy points.
Todd Gurley.
Yeah, Todd Gurley as well. But see that 2-3 turn, right? I don't really. That's when it starts to, because like, are you comfortable with Travis Etienne? Like, are you comfortable with Ramondre? Like those dudes, they scare me in that point right there. I'm more comfortable with Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle. Well,
that's the thing is Ramondre is now sliding. Travis Etienne goes pick 35. It's not me that has to worry about getting Travis Etienne. You're the one picking at 36, right? If you get Devontae Adams there, you're the one picking at 36 on the other way around. So you're the guy that's going to end up with Travis Etienne. I'm going to end up with like Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle.
I can dig that.
It gets scary. The third round is getting scary, and it gets scarier every day in the preseason because these injuries, they come for us all.
There are plenty of average players in any sport. This month, we're gearing up for the NFL season and looking to draft a diamond in the rough by finding someone that is lower in ADP to be a breakout candidate. Give us a name that you think could be a breakout star in 2023. Coop, who you got?
Yeah, people talk about the post-hype sleeper where guys, were really into this player and then we had to wait. This is kind of a post-hype sleeper because he's going into his fourth year. But Antonio Gibson is a player that played wide receiver in college. The problem was J.D. McKissic was there to play that role, and he was just slightly better at it. But this year, J.D. McKissic is gone. Brian Robinson is the early down back that really doesn't soak up targets at all. And Eric Bieniemy comes over from the Chiefs, where he just gave a 30-plus-year-old Jerick McKinnon 71 targets. If Gibson can get those targets and maintain at least a little bit of the rushing he had last year, it's Gibson to the moon, baby. So I'm in. Fourth year Gibson, sign me up.
I love it, Coop. You've been listening. I'm not trying to do the commander train here.
What we're doing now?
But a name that I can't get away from is Jahan Dotson. He's really been building some chemistry with Sam Howell that we've seen in the preseason. And while Terry McLaurin typically runs those long vertical routes, Dotson tends to run the shorter, more intermediate routes, which is more suited for Howell's arm. Last year, his yards per route run was only 1.5, which ranked 60th. And he really did have a nose for the end zone. Before he got hurt early last season, he had 4 touchdowns through 4 games. I mean, what we're seeing in the preseason, he looks to be just as good, if not better, this season. The Commanders are also likely going to play from behind a lot in their games this year and be forced to throw. And while McLaurin is going to draw that tight coverage, it's going to open Dotson up for more of those negative game script targets. And as wide receiver 39, he's a smash.
Yeah, I like both those players this year too. So I actually like the Commanders to make the playoffs. I'll save that for next segment. But you're looking at this draft board, the dude going right behind him. I've mentioned him before, Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think that Seahawks offense is going to be pretty tough to deal with this year. And this kid right here is a dynamic wide receiver. And you can start to see a little bit of DK Metcalf's yard per catch drop. This guy right here can come in and have a big role right from the start. Quentin Johnson with the Chargers also is a guy that can have a big role right from the start, especially the way Keenan Allen and Mike Williams find a way to land on the injury report. Brandon Cooks is due for a breakout in Dallas, even though I think Dallas is going to be running the ball a lot. And let's not forget what we just saw this past weekend with our shorty, with Deuce. You know what I'm saying? Deuce on the loose, looking like Darren Sproles, shifty, getting behind those tacklers and all of that. So I think you got a couple of late round options right there. I think we just put you on to some. So, and Jordan Love. And I'm telling you, listen, when you go to the waiver wire after week 1 to pick up Jordan Love, hit my Cash App.
Classic fantasy exact move right there. Britt said, Heather says, give me one sleeper. And Corey does. Very nice. Hey, but
I can't be boxed in, Coop.
I'm kind of with you on the Commanders, man. I'm kind of with you because, I mean, it's almost like the Falcons to a certain degree where you start looking around that team and it's excellent. It's just the quarterback where the problem is. If I can be sold on Howell or even Brissett, then you can get behind this team. But I mean, McLaurin, Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas has been a solid player, but they got the guy Cole Turner, who seems to be turning heads over there. None of their, I don't know why their tight end scouts or coach, he refuses to draft real tight ends. I'm not sure if you noticed the depth chart, how it's built over there. It's Logan Thomas, who's a quarterback, Cole Turner, who played wide receiver, Curtis Hodges, who played wide receivers, and Armani Rogers, who played quarterback in college. I think John Bates is the only dude that actually plays tight end, but for fantasy football, that's fine with me. But that team's kind of loaded up right now. So,
and then when you look in the trenches, Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen were both made the NFL's top 100 list. They're good in the trenches. You mentioned the quarterback. Listen, I stand these young quarterbacks this year. How and Jordan Love, not Justin Fields. You know what I'm saying? I like him for fantasy, but he ain't gonna really take your team nowhere. And that's another discussion that we have to have. Like, there's some players that's good for fantasy, and there's some players that's not going to be good for fantasy.
Fact.
Well, I'm not dissing a player if if I don't think they're going to, like Dotson. I think Dotson's got that clutch gene. And I do think he's going to be good for fantasy too, but I think McLaurin could be better. So I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
I'll give you an example to that. I personally, like Daniel Jones, I'll consider him in fantasy because he runs for like 700 yards. But do I think Daniel Jones can win the MVP of the league?
No.
Not really.
Shouldn't be making $40 million a season.
I thought that was a crazy commitment to that player. A guy that they wouldn't pick up his 5th-year option just the year before. Britt, are you a Daniel Jones guy or no? I always forget.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, and Pemba seems I don't know. I don't get it. And I worry that teams like that, teams like the Giants right now and like the Lions, they're going to do what Andy Reid did for years in Kansas City with Alex Smith, where it turned out that the coach was very good, which kind of carried them to the playoffs every year, 12, 13 wins. But once they got a real quarterback, took off for real.
See, going back to the Commanders, I really think that they might tank with that new ownership. I wonder if they want to bring in their own people.
It's hard with that.
And
well, the thing is, I was thinking the same thing. And I could still see them bringing in a quarterback next year, but it's hard. I mean, as Corey pointed out, like the entire defense at this point is first-round picks. Like Jamin Davis there, they just took a cornerback in the first round.
Emmanuel
Forbes. Yeah, like
ball hawk.
Across the board, it's like literally all first-round picks, all those guys. So, I mean, it might be hard for them to tank in that sense, unless you were to somehow get Bieniemy and Ron Rivera on board. And
Howell is extremely bad.
Ron ain't tanking.
And if Howell is extremely bad, then I think they can pull the trigger. But then now you're looking at a spot where, then does Caleb Williams want to play for Eric Bieniemy? I don't want anybody yelling at me all the time, and I'm generational talent. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
Okay, LaShawn McCoy.
No, I'm serious. I mean, that's what the players say about him. You know what I'm saying?
It's true, though. Yeah, they say
yell at them all the time. You can't really be yelling at people like that nowadays. You know what I'm saying? Like, so whatever. But
you'd be more of a Pete Carroll coach.
Yeah,
I would be. Ass.
See, this is what I would do, right? When the players, the players wouldn't even have to come to me if I was the head coach, right? I'd be like, I would say, Eric, come in my office. You know what I'm saying? And I'd be like, listen, cut the foolishness. You know what I'm saying? It's not how we run an operation here, right?
So you're Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, I'm gonna be like, listen, I'm not gonna it's not even gonna get to the players. I'm gonna handle it before the players can handle it. First of all, he wouldn't be on my staff because I've done my research and I don't want nobody yelling at my players. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't be yelling. I yell at the players, not everybody else.
You got it all figured out, dude.
Yeah,
the standard is the standard.
The standard is the standard. You know what I'm saying?
But don't you question don't you have to question how he was with the Chiefs? Did he yell at them then?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes,
I
Yes,
they
that
did.
was the problem.
yeah,
That was the problem.
this isn't a new thing.
Yeah, that's the thing is that it's not a new thing, and that's why nobody would hire that guy. He should be a head coach right now, Eric Bieniemy, based on his resume, but because
Right.
of what people say about him, and, his attitude and stuff, that's the problem.
And then Andy
Like
Reid is
Greg
a real
Williams.
head coach. Mind you, so these stories didn't really come out under Andy Reid because Andy Reid handled it. Ron Rivera was like, somebody help.
Can somebody please clip the Ron Rivera impression that Corey
Good
just
God.
did? That was amazing.
Yeah, so
Sorry.
maybe it'll be a little good cop, bad cop then with Rivera and Bieniemy.
Right. Now it's time for Dealer's Choice. Give us your bet of the day. It could be on any topic and any sport. Britt, what do you have for us today?
So I'm dipping back in baseball today. I'm going to go Corey Seager over 0.5 home runs at plus 310 on DraftKings Sportsbook. He's facing Reed Detmers, who has a 5.27 ERA and 17 home runs on the season, and Seager has been on fire. He's had 3 home runs over the last 7 days, including 2 last night, and I really do expect him to get another one today against Detmers. His first at bat after coming back from the IL was a home run, and he has been on a revenge mission ever since. Give me Corey Seager plus 310.
Yep. So today, what I'm going to do for our wager of the day is I'm going to keep the Commander talk going, and I'm going to bet the Washington Commanders. I believe it's something in the close to plus 175, plus 195 range. To make the NFL playoffs this year. I don't think Ron Rivera is great, but I do think the team can withstand it. I think Howell will get it done enough. I think they can manage him properly to get it done enough to get the team over the hump. Really, the team that they're going to have to be better than, in my opinion, is going to be the New York Giants. And if it wasn't for Kayvon Thibodeau wrecking that game plan last year, and it was a horrible call at the end of that game. If you don't remember when New York played Washington, it was a real terrible call the last possession of that game. They kind of gave the Giants the game in that playoff spot. And I think the Giants could regress a little bit this year. So I say the Commanders are seed number 7 in the NFC. They won't be there for long, but they will get a playoff game. And then, Britt made a very good point about them tanking, right? Because that's the Josh Harris group. That's the 76er group. Trust the process. But I think if you look at what the Sixers are going through right now, looking back, they probably would have been like, it was stupid to tank because you teach your team to lose and they get satisfied with that.
Yeah, we're to trust the process of the team that traded for Markelle Fultz. Anyway, I got 2 bets for you. I got one short-term, one long-term. Short-term one is simple. I'm going to bet on the Browns to win tomorrow in the preseason game, which I know is psychotic, but Dorian Thompson-Robinson,
Yeah.
I mean, the magic is there. They're going to give him an extended look. And I think in a second preseason game, if you have one guy that's a backup quarterback that you could actually bank on to be fun to root for, I say go for it. Don't go crazy. $5-10. The other one is I'm betting on the Bills under 10.5 win total for the season. And it has nothing to do really with Zeke and Dalvin Cook signing. It's more just about the overall scope of this offseason where all these other teams got better. The Patriots got better. The Jets obviously got much better. The Dolphins are getting all their pieces back, and the Bills kind of just hung tight. They traded up for a tight end. That's the move that they did in the first round, but that team is looking really thin. We want as many outs as possible with these bets. They could outright just not be a 11, 12, 13 win team, or the fact that they're so top heavy. You lose Josh Allen, you lose Stephon Diggs. I mean, at this point, if you lose James Cook with Damon Harris banged up, you don't have anybody there. So there's a couple pieces. If they lose one of those guys, they're in big trouble. So I like the outs you get on the under with the Bills.
Well, and not only that, but the AFC East is tough, and they're facing the NFC East. I mean, their schedule is just pretty brutal, full of a lot of really good defenses and very balanced offenses. So I think that the win total is a little high on that. I agree with you.
I like some of these coming in on the in the chat, but Bucks 3 plus 350 to make the playoffs. I don't know. Baker kind of looked good. Britt, you were pointing that out, right? That what, 7 of 8? He looked kind of nice out there.
He looks serviceable. I won't say nice.
Yeah, let's relax. Hey, with Dorian Thompson Robinson, with DTR, he could be a nice trade asset moving forward. You know what I'm saying? I could see maybe a team like the Rams trying to get involved because I think we're at the end of Matthew Stafford, and I can see Atlanta if they don't get in the position to get Drizzy Drake May or Caleb Williams. That could be a direction that they go as well. So I think that's. And then listen, AFC unders, NFC overs.
That's
Except for the Patriots.
Except for the Patriots.
Go over on the Patriots.
But I'm in on that. And I'll tell you, I'm fired up for the week one matchup. The more I think about it, with the Bills and the Jets on Monday night in New York City on 9/11, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that is going to be electric. I maybe in my mind, I'm setting the expectations too high, but talk about a smash spot for the schedule makers, right? That one's going to be wild.
It's going to be so good. And I can't wait. Did anyone watch the Hard Knocks last night?
No, I missed it. I got to go back and watch it. I was watching Gil's Arena.
It was so good, Britt.
It was good. My buddy texted me. He's like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Hard Knocks is making me like Aaron Rodgers.
He does come across as very likable.
That's good because it wasn't that way, and it wasn't that way in Green Bay.
Tom Brady, I liked him once he went to Tampa Bay. It's amazing to me. Hard Knocks makes you like people that you
want.
Happens.
Hey, speaking of liking people, guess who's trying to get their popularity back up? The legend Derek Jeter. He's doing Old Timers Day for the first time since he's been retired this year. That's because Yankee fans tend to hate Derek Jeter since he retired. But shout out to him. I guess he's trying to get back in the fans' good graces. But I wish the team would get back in the fans' good graces. Sorry.
Let's just leave that exclamation mark right there.
That'll do it.
Right, exactly. Well, thank you, Corey. That was today's edition of A Bettor Morning. Thank you to Corey, Britt, and Coop. Make sure you check out Quick Out Fantasy Football with John and Pemba and Coop at 1 p.m. Eastern. Also, Lisa Ann returns with her new show, Lisa Ann Does Fantasy Better, tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern with Howard Bender. And if you missed any of our shows, you can find them all on our YouTube channel and at bettersports.com. Have a better day, everyone.